Welcome to the Cycle Coach Show.
Empowering conversations on menstrual cycle coaching.
We're your hosts, Claire Baker
and Lauren Olivia Hughes. Welcome to Olivia Waller, known as Cyclically Olivia on Instagram. She is a women's hormone health practitioner and a menstrual cycle coach, and I'm so excited that she's here for the first episode of Cycle Coach Show. So welcome, Olivia.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Before we get too deep into your beautiful business and all the offerings that you've created, I'd love to ask, what cycle day are you on today and how is it feeling?
Yeah, I am cycle day 13 and I mean, it's 9 a.m. So just kind of settling in here after getting my son started for the day. But so far it's feeling good. I know I'm on the transitional days between my inner spring and inner summer. And these days for me just feel different in motherhood. Those are the days, especially like where I feel like I really want to create and express, but the season that I'm in asks me to do less in that realm. So it can be a bit of a stretch, but feeling good otherwise. Just really grounded.
That's beautiful. And I'm excited to hear about like those differences and the evolution you've seen in your business and in your personal life too, of course. I'm, in terms of cycle day, speaking of motherhood, as you know already, in my 28th week, I believe, at this point. So officially in the third trimester, experiencing some new symptoms, as I've mentioned to a few friends, but last week I sneezed and peed my pants. So that was a new one. That was a new one for me. I was like, luckily I was standing in my kitchen and it was totally fine. But now I'm much more cautious when I leave the house. Not to sneeze and pack extra underwear. All right. Now that we've shared, let's start from the beginning, because I know about your business as it stands now a bit. And of course, we will get into that. But I would love to hear about how you started. Where did you begin this journey with hormonal health and menstrual cycle awareness?
Yeah, there's so many layers to this. So I might get a little deep, but hopefully we have time for it. It was really interesting in college. So I had been on hormonal birth control since I was 14. I originally prescribed by my dermatologist for acne that was hormonal and was not properly educated on like how hormonal birth control just masks and shuts down our hormonal system and cycles. And my mother, bless her, didn't know any better. She was like, okay, like we've tried everything else, like this is it. And I just had so many symptoms, like I was just not myself. But I didn't get off until I think I was 21 or 22 when I moved to the copper IUD. But during college, I ended up getting really sick, like just very suddenly. I was a competitive dancer before. I was really like active and just naturally full of energy. And I ended up getting really sick where I was like passing out and having seizure-like symptoms. They were non-epileptic, so they called them like spells. And that was what really got me into the realm of holistic health, because they just kept telling me like, oh, you're just going to have to deal with this for the rest of your life. And so I had to connect the dots myself. And I actually ended up connecting the dots for like a traumatic experience exactly a year prior. And they had diagnosed me with something called postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, which is now becoming more prevalent and common post-COVID actually. But the way it's diagnosed is really similar to adrenal fatigue and dysfunction with a tilt table test. So I ended up going back to school for holistic nutrition. That's where the rabbit hole started. And I just started weaving together all of these pieces of my own experience, and it just made so much sense. And that's really where I found my passion for women's health. It was a big focus in the program as well. And then I just got deeper and deeper. I did more education and training with Nicole Jardim as well, the author of Fix Your Period, if you know her. And then I also did cycle coach school, obviously. And yeah, just the layers of the depth. Like as I kept getting deeper, it made so much sense. So it kind of started as a journey of trying to find the answers because no one else could give them to me. But then it became more about like having this deep connection with my body and this relationship. And there are just so many things that our body tells us, oftentimes like in a loud screaming symptom type way. But for me, luckily, I don't experience that anymore. It's more of these subtle nudges. And yeah, so I've gotten more into the depth of like the energy and the spiritual emotional connection as well over time and through embodied experience. But that's kind of what brought me through this journey so far. And like I mentioned, I got off of hormonal birth control at 21 or 22, got on the copper IUD for a couple of years. Luckily, like I had a fine experience on that. But then I learned of fertility awareness from Nat Dode, lovely
Yay.
Nat. Learned that from her, got off the copper IUD. And she's also who brought me to cycle coach school, actually. I should give her a shout out for that too. And yeah, and then just living deeply in alignment with my cyclical nature ever since. So that's
it always fascinates me like how interwoven this quote unquote industry is, like how we've all kind of crossed paths with each other in many ways. But then your story reminds me of why, right? Like our medical system isn't educated or built in a way to support us. And I find even within like my friendship groups and with clients and stuff, you almost have to like psych them up and prepare them to like go to their GP because it's a great resource, but it's like they might not know. And then you might have to be the detective. And so to find people such as yourselves who've taken it upon themselves to educate themselves and then turn around and coach others and support others, it's just so encouraging and inspiring and exciting that hopefully the next generation can come up in a bit more of a supportive community, I suppose, or a bit more knowledgeable and educated way.
I sure hope so.
Fingers crossed. I am curious to know, so this is how you kind of began your career. At what point did your own motherhood journey kind of begin in that experience?
Yeah. So I, on a whim, well, not on a whim, actually. I mean, like it kind of felt impulsive, but it was a long time coming where I finally quit my corporate job. It feels like a past life, honestly, but we've all been there at some point, I feel like. And then I like right away got accepted into cycle coach school in the program. And it was really during that time where we were exploring the archetypes, and I really made peace with my inner maiden. Like I hadn't done much exploration. Like I knew of inner child work and like I knew of the maiden, but the work we did and the visualization Claire led us through, I really see that as the turning point for me to be like, okay, I felt ready to then enter the next season of meeting my inner mother and becoming a mother. And it was so synchronistic as well, because after that visualization on one of our calls, suddenly owls started appearing in my backyard. And as most people know, owls are nocturnal. So to see them in the light of day is pretty rare. And I just saw the owls as these symbols of like the wise mother and also the wild mother, being connected to nature and all of that. So I just started noticing these synchronicities and like these alignments between conversations I was having with my partner, Matthew, and kind of our vision together of the life we're creating and wanting to create. It just felt natural. But that's where that took form. So it was really interesting because, you know, then we went on to conceive really quickly. Thank you to fertility awareness and that knowledge. But pregnancy for me was a really big challenge. I think we often hear about the physical components, like the symptoms, you know, how the body expands physically, but I wasn't prepared for the spiritual and emotional shifts that came with like my sense of self immediately. For me, it was immediate. Some people, they might not experience it until later in pregnancy or even after birth. But for me, it was immediate and I felt very lost. Like my anchor in the prior years had been my menstrual cycle. Like that was my guiding light at all times. And suddenly, I get the beautiful 2 positive lines on my pregnancy test and that's gone. Like it's suddenly gone. And yeah, I just felt really lost and no one prepared me for that. So it was like this deep initiation of my own soul work. And I kind of hermited for a while in my own world. I didn't know how to share. I didn't know how to talk about what I was going through because I wasn't sure yet. Like I had to do that exploration myself. And I wish I had someone that understood these aspects of it to guide me through it because it was a lot to navigate on my own. But this like experience of my own pregnancy and exploring those shadows that came up and like my evolving sense of self, like now I support women in this as one of my offerings called Becoming, because you're really becoming a new person. Like not only are you creating life, but you are birthing a new sense of self as well. So that whole experience is kind of how motherhood has shaped my work. And I mean, it's not like you give birth and you have become who you are meant to be. I mean, in essence, you have become this new version of you, but even 2 years into motherhood, I'm still becoming who I'm meant to be because we are ever evolving. And yeah, my son just turned 2 on like 11 days ago. I had to count for a minute. And I've just been deep in this portal of reflection because in these 2 years, like how has this shaped and shifted me as well? And it's just been really incredible to like witness because every age and stage for him has meant like a new season of me as well. Less sleeping, less naps, less time for me. Like, how can we weave the space that we have into these pockets of opportunity without having like a full blown day to ourselves and life to ourselves anymore? And yeah, so I hope that answers it. And we can get deeper if more things came up for you, but that's kind of in a nutshell how that all came to be.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to hear, maybe because like that's where I'm at, is that point in pregnancy. Because I remember you and I've had this conversation around the use of like the word mama and people being like, oh, mama. And you're like, I don't associate with that word yet. And I remember feeling so caught off guard when someone said it to me for the first time. And I instantly thought of you because I was like, yeah, what is this? And I'm wondering if you see it in your clients or just in your friendships and conversations, but like, what is that spiritual or emotional transformation that we go through that's not fully acknowledged by society? Because I feel like we get pregnant and then all of a sudden people are like, just you wait for this, just you wait for that. And like, it's almost like doom and gloom, but also like trying to skim over feelings. It's just like a weird duality. Like there's so many different components to it, but I wonder if you have a perspective on that or what you've seen in your own work.
Yeah, for me, I mean, in my perspective, many mothers get left behind in modern society. Like, maybe we have friends that have chosen that parenthood is not the path for them. So they don't have the embodied experience and understanding of what we're going through. So in that essence, even if they're not like actively trying to leave us behind, they don't know how to necessarily support us on this journey, as well as like our modern society is pretty individualistic, even more so since COVID. And in that, we've kind of lost the village. So while there's the excitement of baby, we've really lost touch with the rite of passage of what is becoming a mother. And so for me, early in pregnancy, people calling me mama when I did not yet feel like a mother. Yes, I was pregnant and carrying life, but it just felt like a disregard of my sense of self so quick. Like, you're gone. The old you is gone. Your maiden self is gone, and you are a mama. And I wasn't ready to accept that yet because I was still grappling and unraveling these layers. And it's really interesting because I have one beautiful client. Well, I have more than one client, but one client in particular that I'll reference anonymously here, who we started working together in her preconception phase in my container Becoming, because she wanted to prepare her mind, body, and spirit like for these spiritual and emotional shifts of becoming a mother before like the hormonal shifts forced her. And she said to me at the end of one session, the very session, like 2 days later, she found out she's pregnant. And she said, I am so glad, along the lines, I'm paraphrasing here, but I'm so glad I have done this work because now I feel ready to be a mother and to become a mother rather than like my hormones forcing me. And I just thought that was so powerful. Like, so some people even are ready to embrace the role of mother in early pregnancy. But I really think it had to do with doing that work in preconception, not just that physical body focus.
I'm just wondering if you've had a lot of experience with that evolution that people go on during their pregnancy season that you were touching on. I know even from my experience, like my due date's like a week before my birthday. And so even just people being like, well, say goodbye to your birthday. And I'm like, wait, what? I can't have one day? Like, it's such a weird, like, and maybe that's a whole other question, but it's such a weird, like, oh, you have to sacrifice everything to be a mother. You have to like give up your whole self. And I know like that's not your work at all. Like you're the complete
No.
opposite of just, but like, what is that? What is that like gross?
Yeah, there's so much to name in that, isn't there? And speaking of birthdays, I just want to touch on this quick because I really think, and I hope people can take this and change it for themselves. While, yes, it's important to celebrate your child and the birth of your child and every year that they get to live life, because aren't birthdays phenomenal? I love birthdays. I love celebrating people. But I think an aspect of birthdays for the child also needs to appreciate the mother. Like this child is here because the mother offered, I like to say offered instead of sacrifice. It's an offering, offered her vessel for creating life. So like even in the smallest way, like making an acknowledgement of the mother that gave birth to the child, whether it's like giving her flowers or just saying like happy birth date to you or birthing day, like whatever phrasing makes sense, I think is really important. But yeah, I wish I could like name why people are so quick to just disregard the role of the mother. There are so many aspects in our modern society that just see it as like this self-sacrifice, and like in ways that like there are shadow times, right? Like in ways it can feel like, oh, I'm sacrificing so much, but like if we can realign and recenter and ground ourselves in like the joys of this season of life and this chapter of life that we get to offer our being, like we are this magical vessel and channel of creation that gets to experience this and create life and evolve as ourselves. I just think it's so important. And like even the whole thing of baby showers, while I think they can be really fun and cute, I personally had a mother blessing. Like it felt really important to me to honor my rite of passage from maiden to mother and be seen and celebrated and witnessed in that, rather than playing like fun baby-esque games, which like I'm not saying that's not good for people. Like if that feels aligned and celebratory for you, that's great. But like for me, I needed to be witnessed in what I was going through and evolving in. And yeah, it's so hard to put, like, I really come back to how this all started is like way, way back when they started disconnecting women from their own bodies. And I think this is another point of disconnection where it shifts the focus to baby and mother becomes disempowered.
I 100% agree with you on that because I have many women in my life who have become mothers, and it's been really wonderful to witness. But going through this pregnancy, like I almost feel like separate from myself sometimes. Like I'm just like witnessing my body as like another party. And it's just like, how are we not praised as goddesses all the time? I'm like, my body, like I'm not doing anything. Like I'm eating well, I'm resting, like going for walks, that kind of thing, like taking care of myself. Yeah. Your body just knows how to like transform into like basically a portal to a whole other world. And yet we're kind of seen as or discounted as like the martyrs, or celebrated if you're sacrificing for your children, versus I love that idea of like having like an offering almost at birthdays to be like, happy birthday. Like you did this, like you gave your body to this creation of a human being. Like your body made a human being from scratch. Like that's so freaking cool. And actually like celebrating women instead of discounting it as like, well, yeah, everyone does it. It's like, okay, but I did it. And that's really cool.
Yeah. And every birthing experience and pregnancy experience, or like, not everyone births and is pregnant with their own child and they receive their child in other ways. Like all of that is so unique. It's like everyone's initiation is different and deserves to be celebrated and witnessed and acknowledged. And it's just such a shame when it's not, because when the mother is held, she has so much deeper capacity to hold her child and the family unit and participate and connect in community and provide whatever offerings or pieces of herself out into the world in whatever ways feels aligned. And if she's not held, like I said, it's just this place of disconnection and disempowerment and feeling like really alone and struggling. And then it becomes more of that sacrificial energy because every mother needs to be held, like, yeah.
Yeah. And thank you for extending that definition of mother to obviously include women who adopt, women who use surrogacy,
Yeah.
all these beautiful different paths and avenues. I'm really enjoying like learning the language that you're using. It's just been, it's like full body tingles. And I'd love to kind of weave towards, as you kind of mentioned in passing, this offering becoming. So your mothering, mentoring space. And how did that come about? How did you birth that idea?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I went back in one of my journals recently. Like I was trying to find notes on something else. And it's like my creativity journal that I started in postpartum, actually, because after giving birth, so many ideas, like the portal of creation quite literally expanded and opened, and so many ideas were flooding to me. So I got this. Actually, I have it, my cute orange, creative fire notebook. And I went back and I was doing a lot of morning pages in postpartum when Milo, my baby, was napping and I had that time to myself. That's back when he napped a lot more, right? And so I would just dump like in the 3 pages of freeform writing. That's by Julia Cameron. She dubbed morning pages in The Artist's Way. And this idea, like I was just reflecting on my becoming, and this word kept coming up, becoming, becoming, becoming. And I noticed it because the word stuck with me, but then it left, life got busy, things, disruptions happened. And then the name came back to me. And I was like, yeah, becoming. Like it's a process of becoming. And then just again, reflecting on my experience of like, okay, yes, I have my background in holistic nutrition and hormone health. I know like all the physicals. And yes, they're important, but I think in our health and wellness space, it almost becomes too much of a focus. And I see that as like too much of a focus on doing. Many people preparing the physical vessel in their body for pregnancy, wonderful, necessary. But then it's like this rabbit hole of getting into, oh, I need to read these books and learn how to mother. And this is what I need to do in pregnancy. This is what I need to do during labor and delivery and birth. And you get really stuck in your head and the logistics. And that's not the place you want to be during labor at all. You really want to be dropped into the body. So instead of like that being the focus, while it's still, of course, a tool in my toolkit for my work and it comes up naturally, it just felt really important to acknowledge the spiritual and emotional shifts during pregnancy. Like I mentioned, one client started with me in preconception, and it's even a space for like, if you're already a mother, your becoming never ends. The process of motherhood is a becoming in itself. So I just wanted to make space of that to really honor the rite of passage from maiden to mother. And the way that this happens looks different for each person because, like I stated, the initiation is so unique to whatever they're experiencing. So we kind of go to the depths of that and explore that. But yeah, I had no idea. So I just like physically birthed this as an offering in October. So like 6 months ago or so, or yeah, 6 months. But the idea came to me as the initial dream seed in June of 2023, postpartum. But I didn't know like to what extent this would come to life. So I think that also really illuminates how motherhood can shift the cycles of creation. Because when we're really rooted in our menstrual cycle and like, yes, I'm cycling now again, that came back 6 months postpartum for me, I really tune into larger, bigger cycles, like the seasons, for example, because time in motherhood is just very different, and creating within one menstrual cycle is not as feasible as it once was. So yeah, that's kind of how all that came to be. Yeah.
How do you see your creativity or even just your alone time? How has that evolved in your business and in everything since you've had Milo?
Yeah. I kind of hinted at it at the beginning when we did our cycle check-in. And yeah, so in my inner spring and inner summer now, I would say these are actually my biggest times of tension in my menstrual cycle, simply because, yes, my energy is rising, but my capacity is the same. My capacity is the same in motherhood, as in I am my child's primary caretaker. So I'm both mother and business and creative. But first and foremost, in this season, he comes first. So now that he's 2 and naps maybe an hour a day, those pockets are like, my pocket to myself is 1 hour. And that doesn't always mean actively working in business in our typical terms of working. So I have to find the pockets. And like, for me, we are blessed to live in literal nature. We step outside. We live in the mountains of Colorado. Really grateful to be here every day. And that's when those little seeds of inspiration begin to plant themselves. Like, I refer to them as dream seeds. A lot of it's just a reflection of nature and what's happening around me, our embodied experience day to day. And yeah, like postpartum, like I said, that creation, literal birth portal opening, creating life, bringing life earthside, really awaken something different in me. You'll know it when you go through it. I know it's hard to put to words something so ethereal and like magical until you have that embodied experience. But yeah, so like I've stated, every season and stage and age of Milo's growth as a child has really asked me to continue to surrender. I think motherhood is a big and our rite of passage, like maiden to mother, pregnancy, motherhood, all of the things, is the biggest invitation of surrender again and again. It's the biggest humbling I've ever been through. And so, like, when he was a newborn, napping like 3+ times a day, they say sleep with when babe sleeps, but I had a lot of creative energy that I needed to process and integrate and work through. And that didn't necessarily mean birthing it out into the world, but like integrating it within my being was really important. But now that he's in toddlerhood, like, we'll have times of creation together, like on the den calls, our creative hours that you hosted, watercolor painting together, and like witnessing his becoming as well. Like, he's becoming a person, right? That has given me inspiration. So I would just really see it all as like this reflection and mirror that we keep going off of each other and feeding into each other's energy. And yeah, I've been in this process of deep self-discovery, rediscovery of my creative self. I was a really creative child, and I lost that along the conditioning and, programming of school, if you will. And yeah, this is all like the past couple of years have brought me back to that and has really helped shape my business, because our life is what holds and shapes and nurtures our business. And while at times it can seem like a really slow season in business, like I'm not sharing a whole lot on Instagram or talking about my offerings all the time, or, writing posts or emails or whatnot, but like these life experiences, this embodiment is what eventually feeds the creation that comes in time. So yeah, it's been a beautiful path of surrender and humbling myself over and over.
Yeah, and I love what you say about just like the personal kind of informing the professional, because I work with a lot of women who are entrepreneurs and creatives, and it's just like that's what the biggest reminder is to like, please be yourself. Please like show those like dualities and like the vulnerabilities and the scary bits and just also your personal life. Like, and I think you do that so beautifully. And obviously I don't want to be like Instagram versus reality, because I know a bit of both for you, that like there is that nuance of motherhood. But I also wonder if we could touch on your new baby that you got recently. Because I think it's such a cool, I would love to hear about this experience. So Olivia recently acquired a horse.
Yeah.
And I just think it's such a beautiful, yeah, I would love to hear this story, because I just think it's wonderful as like a mom of a 2-year-old that you're like still pursuing these like very wild dreams of like having a
Yeah.
horse.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll touch on this, like the background of it too, because I think it helps feed into the story a little bit. So growing up, I was a wannabe horse girl, in the essence that I lived in the suburbs. There wasn't the space for a horse in our yard or something. So I went to like horseback riding camps in the summer. eventually found a stable somewhat close to me, close enough where my parents would be like, fine, like we'll drive out there, can do some lessons and stuff. And then like worked my way up over time. I ended up being like a barn handler at the horseback riding camps when I was a teenager and stuff. And so it was just a lot of fun. And one of my phases in college, I was going to school for animal science pre-vet med. And then that's when I got really sick and had it started. Well, I also got a horse in college for the first time. So like my dad always said no. And then like, over the years, saved money, came across this opportunity. I was working at one of the barns near campus. And this horse was at the barn, became available for sale. And I was like, I want this horse. My dad was like, you don't need to buy a horse. And I was like, watch me. But then like a couple months later, I ended up getting really sick, as I shared earlier, and was having these like seizure-like symptoms where I was passing out and like, I mean, that crushed the dream, right? Like I couldn't ride a horse safely and suddenly pass out. Like that's going to get us both hurt. I couldn't pursue vet med because I mean, that can involve surgery and searchers and all of those things. So it's like my dream was over. One of my concepts that I've been teaching lately is like rewilding as expansion. And I look at some archetypes, not just maiden and mother, but the untamed maiden. So the maiden who, if we think of our maiden years from like birth to 25, like we look at in cycle coach school, along those lines in like early adolescence in school and such, the untamed maiden becomes tamed. And like, our wild, authentic nature, we start to trade that for more of like social acceptance and belonging. So rediscovering my untamed maiden has been this embodied experience for me. And it's looked like coming back to horse life. So my beautiful friends for my 30th birthday surprised me with going horseback riding in the mountains. And, we live in a spot that's really unique. We have a stables in the neighborhood down the street. And so these dream seeds, like the opportunity started aligning itself where it's like, wait, this could become my reality again. And it was during the winter solstice where I literally officially planted the dream seed, created my manifestation board. And my horse is a spitting image of the first picture I put on my manifestation board of like, yep, that's the horse I want. And I found her. And, the first time I went to go see her, it was in January. I was like, this is it, but how are we going to make this happen? I don't know, logistics, finances, those things. Like a horse is not a small feat to take on. And then 3 days later, she got injured. Like I was just like, whoa, what? And not that I wish that a horse would get injured or anything, but it allowed things to continue to align and become reality for us. So yeah, I mean, it's just been so wild how it's all come to fruition. And I think, like I mentioned, the wild mother archetype, a deeper rooted, I really see the wild mother as like the foundation has to be that untamed maiden. We have to rediscover the untamed maiden to really root into our wild mother self. The mother archetype is really seen as like nurturing, loving, caring. It can often be confused with the martyr of like that self-sacrifice and like depletedness. But the wild mother, like if we can root into our own wild essence and tend to that first while tending to others and creation, like the experience is going to be so much better. And so that's how all of this has come to life for me, is like these explorings of my own experience and teachings and just manifestation. You're probably more deeply rooted in manifestation. I've been dabbling in it for like the past year or two. I still don't know like all the ins and outs, but speaking to the universe and things, it just comes to be with some aligned action. Of course, it's not just going to magically appear, but yeah, it's been so sweet to share this experience with my son. He loves the horses. And now my horse, I named her Solstice, obviously, or Soul for short. And she is so gentle and sweet with him. Not that I'm having him ride her, but like when we interact and go feed her and stuff, like she'll nuzzle him and like let him hold her head. It's just like the sweetest thing. So yeah, I would just really encourage anyone traversing the path of motherhood to explore these parts of themselves and like don't let yourself lose touch because everyone says you will. If anything, let it be an act of rebellion and reclamation to like really root into these authentic, natural parts of you and let that flavor what motherhood looks like for you. Because it can be whatever you want it to be, honestly. And I keep finding that out every day.
Ah, I love that so much. And the word reclamation, I know you use it a lot in your copy and writing, but what a powerful word, especially in relation to motherhood, because I think a lot of us, when you become a mom, of course, there's elements from, or maybe not, of course, there may be elements from your own mother that you want to like replicate, but then there's always like, I just feel like there's always going to be like a slight evolution as the generations continue. And so it's just a beautiful word to remember. And like that concept of the wild mother and the untamed maiden, it's just like, I just feel like now I want to go make a vision board, manifest some things.
Yes.
I could just like, yeah, like I said, I know you personally in many ways, but I just love hearing you speak about your work in this capacity
Thank
because I
you.
could just see what kind of space holder you are and just like igniting those sparks in women of just being like, it can be a spiritual experience, it can be celebratory, and it can be like you centered, even though you are bringing a whole other person into the picture. So thank you for bringing this work to like the forefront, and thank you for like, yeah, continuing to encourage other women to become the best versions, or not even the best versions, but like their most like magical, like whatever they want to be.
Yeah.
So powerful. I think to end, I'm just wondering, let me just double check my question list and see, is there anything that you would like to touch on? Because I know sometimes we kind of go on many different paths and journeys.
Yeah, I think one thing you just stated, like to be centered and like grounded in motherhood, like that brought something up for me as like a tool that I can then offer insight on for others is like not every day we're going to be centered and grounded. I definitely have my moments where I'm like, I quit. I can't, motherhood is asking me more than I can sustainably give. It's always a moment. But one of the tools that has really supported me is using creativity, creative expression really as self-regulation because, one of the biggest things we need to try to be as mothers is regulated because we have better insights and tools to regulate ourselves and know how to work with our own energy and emotions than our children do. And it can be really dysregulating when they're trying to figure it out and they don't have the words yet, and the overstimulation of tantrums, crying, throwing themselves on the ground, like that adds up and really can fray our nervous system. So having that sense of connection to ourselves and our creative expression and using that as self-regulation, I think oftentimes it can be easy, especially as entrepreneurs, to use our creativity to produce for a certain outcome in our business. But like revisiting it as just a source of self-expression has been such a powerful and embodied way to process and integrate my own emotions and experience and then better be able to regulate myself for my son. And so I just wanted to touch on that piece because I just think it's just really important. And like, even if you don't feel like a creative, really all creativity is self-expression. So it just starts with a connection to yourself. And especially as a mother, but anyone with a womb, the womb is a creative portal. It's like our creative center that we can turn to over and over again. So even if you're not walking the path of motherhood, if you have a womb or a cycle, or just even follow the cycle of the moon and work and tune into that energy to allow yourself to express, it's really liberating.
Yeah, I love any opportunity to highlight creativity. You and
Yeah,
I have that in common because it's
it's a big
just like,
theme.
it is so powerful, right? That idea of play that I think we're just taught to abandon in lieu of like productivity and money and all the things, that it just feels a bit sticky eventually, because it's like, what about just, yeah, playing for the sake of playing, inventing, creating. So finding
Yes.
that in motherhood or in your cycle is so powerful to then pass on to the future generations and inspire them as well. It makes me actually think of, I've been watching The Great Pottery Throwdown. I don't know if you have that. It's like
Oh
a very
yeah,
British show.
fun.
And it's like, my husband and I have been talking about it because there's this judge, his name's Keith, and he looks like the kindest, like man, but he's kind of like hunched because he's been throwing for probably 50 years. And he looks
Yeah.
like he could be very scary because he's this big guy. But every episode he cries because he's just like so inspired by their creativity. And he also cries when it doesn't turn out, and you could tell the person's like, oh, like it didn't work out and it was a failure. And he's like, but thank you for trying. And the two of us are just like, I think he's healing part of my like inner child of just this idea of like, you can just experiment, you could just play, you could just, and I'm like, oh, this feels like it's landing at the perfect time as like I like, go over the bridge into motherhood to be like, okay, this is the kind of parent I think I want to be. It's just this like really beautiful soul of a person being like, thank you for trying and thank you for like experimenting. Oh my
I
God.
love that so much. Yeah, pottery was like my first reinitiation into creativity, like
Mm,
post divorce. I was like, what am I going to do for myself? And I was like, I'm going to do pottery. And it's the biggest invitation of, again, well, like motherhood is the biggest invitation of surrender, but also like the creative process of pottery, like
mm,
because at every step, something can go wrong.
I
Every
know.
single step of the process. So
Mm,
it's really like you have to release and surrender expectation and perfectionism and just allow yourself to like play, feel, create, and see what comes through. And yeah, I mean, like any form of creativity can really provide that. I thought it was like such a nice physical, tangible lesson
mm-hmm.
because you're literally playing with the clay and
Yeah.
trying to forge it, but you can't force it. Like you have to find that flow, and it's just such an interesting medium. And
Mm,
even like as simple as like I mentioned, the morning pages and connecting with your voice and your thoughts and your feelings, that is creative expression. Like you don't have to share that with anyone else, but you can if it helps you find your voice and this new sense of self. And that's kind of how I got back into writing too. During school, I let them condition me into thinking that like English and writing and the arts they didn't have any value. Like they didn't provide a nice career path, if you will. So I
mm-hmm.
was more rooted in the math and science and having the answers and all of those things. But coming back to just like finding the words and finding my voice and finding the space and getting comfortable with sharing that has been so nice and so supportive, especially in my path of motherhood, because in ways I feel like I haven't had examples of motherhood in the way that I'm traversing motherhood.
Mm-hmm.
And so to like, as Charlotte states, calls it being an edge walker and like creating your own path. It's just so necessary to have your ways of doing that. And again, processing and integrating all of it. It's so helpful. So I hope
Mm.
all of this helps others on their journey as well.
Yeah, I'm seeing so much of my own journey reflected in what you just said too, around like the sciences and maths being celebrated. And I do love physics. It was one of my best marks, but I also loved creativity. And it was just like, took a long circle to like come back to exactly what I always
Yeah.
wanted to do. It reminds me of like, speaking of motherhood, like growing up, my mom had highlighted this newspaper article on our fridge. And I remember walking by to read it. And I think maybe it was more aimed towards like my middle brother, but it was basically the gist of the article was no matter how much you try as a parent to like shape your kids into who you think they should be, one day you'll wake up and they'll be who they were always meant to be. And I
Yeah.
just love I love that idea of just like I found my creativity through pottery as well, and just like that idea of like you can do whatever you want to the clay, but it might just explode, or you could get to the final stage and have it and then drop it, and it's very fragile and it breaks.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like
Yeah.
that like surrender or release of just being like those like gentle hands around the pottery wheel as like this child is growing up and like becoming who they want to be. Um,
Yes.
it's yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah. I really think they'll show you who they are and who they're meant to be. And
Mhm.
in return, like I keep talking about reflection and mirrors, but in return, it will show you who you are and who
Mm,
you are meant to be.
mm,
Like there is no force. It is just, I really think it's all in the stars, in
mm,
alignment, and it's our path to find it. But yeah, they're on their journey of becoming too. So let's give them that spaciousness and support to explore that for them.
mm. I think that's a beautiful place to end. But before we depart, I'd love to ask you like one final question, which is just kind of from left field. Is that the sport pun? I don't know why I went to the sport analogy. But what are you reading right now?
Yeah, I just got the Living the Artist's Way. I mentioned The Artist's Way earlier as Julia Cameron's book. It's also by Julia Cameron. It's deepening into one of her aspects or artist tools, if you will, is called writing for guidance. And it's kind of a deeper exploration of writing for guidance and finding guidance, like in whatever way you see fit, spiritually or religiously, who your guides are, and how that forms like creativity and living the artist's way. So that's been really fun. Like I literally just got that, I think, last week. So I'm still in the very beginning of it, but I'm also someone that like picks up books and I receive what I need in the time and then I put it down, maybe change to a different book. Like I just find it to be this intuitive pull, this energetic pull of like, oh, you need a little piece from this, you need a piece from that. And I like come back and forth. I rarely read a book front to back in one sitting, unless it's like fiction. I'm getting better at coming back to fiction, but I love to learn. So a lot of the maybe dubbed self-help books are kind of what I gravitate towards the most. But yeah, the creative explorations have been calling to me in the past couple of years. So like I've also recently gotten The Creative Act by Rick Rubin.
Yeah.
And so I picked that up for a couple of chapters and then I got Living the Artist's Way, picked that up. And I just kind of ebb and flow between them and see what comes through.
Yeah, that's how I love to consume nonfiction as well. I'm a big fiction reader, but nonfiction, it's just like it needs to be set aside. Or I also realized I was like, I don't have to read the chapters in order. Like there's no reason.
Yeah.
That was just like rewilding of my brain of just being like, I could just skip to the chapter I want to read. This is great.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. The rewilding of the brain, because we have this like perfectionistic mindset, kind of like in school, you have to read this book, you have to pull out the themes and like take all the information and digest it and blah, blah, blah. But like where that really came through to me the most was in Women Who Run with the Wolves. Have you read it?
I
That
haven't
one,
read it
it's
in its
so deep.
entirety. Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's so deep, right? And there are just different chapters or like areas of the book. I don't even know if she calls them chapters really, but it's like you can look at the table of contents and be like, this is the theme I need support on right now, and just dive into that. So that was my first, again, surrender, where I was like, okay, this can be my process. It doesn't have to be absorbing the whole book front to back. So it's been really freeing, liberating to do it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like we're all coming home to like that feminine part of ourselves that can flow and pick one thing up, put the other thing down. And it's just, yeah, a beautiful image.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us for our first episode of the Cycle Coach
It's such an
Show.
honor.
Yes, and tell everyone where they can find you and yeah, what you have coming up.
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram as Cyclically Olivia. And well, I recently created a Substack. I have 3 written pieces as of the time of recording this. So like maybe you listen to it down your own timeline, and it's more into the future. But you can find me on Substack as Rewilding with Olivia Lauren. It's really my space to deepen into the layers of my own embodied experience of rewilding, whether it be motherhood, creativity, business, just life, where I don't feel so restricted by Instagram's like caption limits. So my beautiful mentor, Sophie, actually just shared this analogy where Instagram is the art gallery and Substack is the library, and there's room for both. So I just love that. And that's been, again, really liberating in my creative expression. And then my website is Cyclically Olivia. And yeah, currently I have limited capacity for one-to-one, but that is what I'm offering. So I have one space opening up again at the time of recording this. So just go look if you feel called and aligned. But I have various mentorships, like I've mentioned, becoming on the rite of passage from maiden to mother, but I also have reflection, which is I have actually just recently rewilded it from being more rooted in hormone health and cyclical living, which it still is. Again, that's like one layer, but it's also become this evolved version where we explore all aspects of being through the spiritual, emotional, like creative self-expression. So that's for mothers and non-mothers, any women, creatives, dreamers, if you will, a space to be supported. And then I have a one-off offering, like if you just want to get a flavor, I've dubbed it Dream Seeds, where you can have like a one-off session or a week of voice note mentoring and just kind of start to plant the seeds of whatever feels alive for you right now. Again, that can be like looking at your hormone health, your cycle, those patterns and blueprints, or like creative self-expression, all of those things. So there are many flavors to my work and layers and depth and all of that. So yeah, many options.
I love that. There's many layers to you as a woman, you know?
Yes, I'm a lover of depth, all things deep. Bring me there.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Cycle Coach Show. If you loved what you heard, then please review, share, and subscribe to help us reach more cyclical listeners like you. You can find us on Instagram at Cycle Coach School or online at cyclecoachtraining.com.